In 2009, James Cameron released a movie called Avatar, a movie nobody really saw coming or moreover never saw becoming as big as it did. But in modern days, that's exactly what happened. Produced through Cameron's own company and originally distributed by 20th Century Fox, the film exploded into screens with groundbreaking 3D technology that changed cinema forever. It didn't just perform well, it shattered records and ultimately grossed nearly $2.93 billion worldwide. Taking into account all the re-releases too, where it originally did 2.7, becoming the highest grossing film of all time, before getting beaten by Endgame, before again re-released to beat Endgame, a title it still holds today unadjusted for inflation. And 13 years later in 2022, Cameron returned with Avatar: The Way of Water, and by then, as we know with this channel, Disney had acquired Fox where the sequel came under their banner, but still produced and owned by Cameron himself. But once again, expectations were more mixed. Just like the first film, many wondered if lightning could strike twice after such a long gap, but of course, like Cameron does, it did. Avatar: The Way of Water pushed visual boundaries even further with revolutionary underwater motion capture, and it swam past $2.32 billion globally, securing the third spot of all time. And now, in recent weeks, Avatar: Fire and Ash is the third installment hit, gained under Disney's 20th Century Studios distribution and Lightstorm's production. And of course, like always, it has surged past records. Even though it was a lower start than the last film, Way of Water, it still is performing well and is legging well. Of course, as I predict, it would be another $2 billion. It signals that this is kind of an extraordinary legs that have defined the franchise, with just under 3 films that have now surpassed many big major franchises with 10. And under Disney, Avatar is bigger than ever. 3 films combined have toppled $5.6 billion, continuing to dominate as one of the most lucrative properties in film history. But the question remains, why? Why does it work? At its core, the success of these first 2 films and the proven momentum of the third boils down to one undeniable truth. Avatar delivers unparalleled cinematic spectacle that truly demands to be experienced on the biggest screen possible in the best formats. When the original Avatar was released in 2009, it wasn't merely a movie, it was a full-blown technological revolution. Of course, hindering on 3D technology. CGI pipelines that made the alien world of Pandora feel tangible, real, and alive. The movie showcasing stuff like the floating Hallelujah Mountains, the glowing bioluminescent jungles at night, the majestic banshees soaring through the sky, where none of it felt like cheap effects. They felt even better than the prequels that preceded it a few years ago. It was immersive, breathtaking, and unlike anything modern audiences had seen before. This innovation coincided with the global rollout release of digital 3D projectors in theaters. Avatar essentially kickstarted the modern 3D era we know, something that kind of actually gets some mixed success, but has contributed to the bigger rise of IMAX screenings and 3D surcharges, where it was one of those movies that you could say, like other major cultural hits, was something that you didn't see just once. You go back and see it again. You have to see it in theaters, despite other people saying otherwise, that nobody will watch a movie with blue people on an alien moon. But somehow, just somehow, it did. The spectacle-first approach explained why these movies shadow barriers even when the openings aren't always the flashes compared to hype-driven launches like a Star Wars film opening to $200 million or an Avengers film opening to $350 million and making $1 billion within a few days. And with Fire and Ash already proving its legs over the holidays, it's on track, of course, to be that undeniable hit. But again, the bigger question still remains, why does Avatar work so well at the box office? Why has this franchise even surpassed Star Wars and Marvel to become an unstoppable force grossing $2 billion each film when so many others say it has no cultural impact? You hear it all the time. With the first film, the second film, and even doubters of the third film's opening weekend, Avatar just doesn't have that cultural impact. Avatar doesn't live on like Star Wars with its endless quotes, memes, and generational fandom. It doesn't dominate pop culture like Marvel that, resonates with the modern day image with interconnectable universes and multiverses and character crossovers and constant media buzz. And it doesn't spawn media empires of DC. No toy aisles of Lego movies or even viral phenomenons of something like Barbie and Oppenheimer in the way of that. No daily conversations about Jake Sully's arc, no Halloween costumes flooding the streets, no theme park rides quite on that iconic level. Well, maybe very soon, and still is today when people praise that. Where the question again still remains, Why is Avatar even relevant? Why does a film make $2 billion and the next day we forget the entire plot of that very film? Especially this one when you know the critic reviews say it stays more of the same with fire and ash. What exactly does Cameron execute that makes it so relevant or timeless? Well, the question did not beyond the revolutionary technology. The profound success of the Avatar films and the early signs of the Third's triumph stem from James Cameron's extraordinary world building of Pandora itself, a planet that feels not only visually alive but spiritually and ecologically interconnected in a way that echo deep truths shared with human culture worldwide. Which again puts a pin in the argument that Avatar has no cultural impact. No, it doesn't. It is culture itself from human history. Because Cameron, working with scientists and linguists, crafted a complete biosphere, flora and fauna linked through Ewa, a planetary neural network where every living thing shares energy and consciousness between neural bonds, and have her as like the goddess of the world of Pandora. And of course, Avatar, Na'vi have their own language. In the original film, this manifested in the sacred sites like the Tree of Souls, a glowing nexus for the ancestral guidance, and in Way of Water that expands to this vast ocean with intelligent Tulkun possessing their own language and histories, and underwater spirit trees enable deep marine connections. Fire and Ash does the same thing, introducing the volcanic realms and the aggressive ash people. Still a little bit iffy on that part, staying the same within the Way of Water, but it further enriches Pandora's diverse biomes and ideas. Plants adapt to their environments, such as we see in real life. The forest Ometikaya in the home trees that we see in the original film, the reef Metkaina with their aquatic physiology, and now these fiery tribes, who of course the main villain from the past two in Court has a very interesting take on her, where it all taps into this multicultural tapestry on one world. Something we've seen throughout the world, like you go to one place in Africa, Europe, Asia, America. This intricate design isn't just aesthetic, it embodies the profound thematic depth, tapping into universal human truths. Reverence for one's nature interconnectedness, resistance to exploitation and imperialism, and the sacredness of family, and the pursuit of harmony over domination. This is seen in the first film's plot. Humans mine unobtainium, the best name ever created for an element, harvesting Amaridia or clashing with new tribes, disrupting Pandora's balance, paralleling real-world histories of colonialism and environmental extraction, but on a universal scale where it doesn't critique one side or the other. It critiques human nature, where James delivers these ideas through heartfelt, accessible storytelling, emotional journeys of belonging, redemption, and protection. These stories embrace primal archetypes, the hero's transformation, and the defense of the home against greed, good versus destructive ambition. And while some critics regard this as simplistic, a lot of the plots aren't really that deep or profound, this simplicity is their power. Rooted in timeless myths found in every culture, they transcend specific references to resonate on a visceral, shared human level. This universal truth drives Avatar's extraordinary global appeal, allowing it to connect deeply with diverse audiences without relying on any culture-specific nods or dense lore. Unlike Star Wars or Marvel, which often weave into Western pop culture references, interconnected universes, or quippy dialogue, acquiring familiarity that some places like China or even Asia rejects, Avatar is pure, self-contained immersion, inviting the viewer to experience beauty, emotion, wonder without the prerequisite homework. I mean, in some way, the original Star Wars has that in its regard to being pure fantasy, fighting against an evil empire on its own. It has those political connections, and I know this as a Star Wars fan myself, but Avatar has something that the others don't, that just say it connects to us. It's nature. Example is evidence lied into the box office results. The massive international hauls with countries like China leading the way, along others huging large sums across all films. Asia takes to this more than they do any Star Wars or Marvel movie on occasion just for one film, where they all consist of themes of balance and family, aligning with Eastern philosophies. And in Europe, anti-imperialist narratives evoke colonial reflections and environmental movements. In America, they resonate with indigenous stewardship and the family dynamics drawing multi-generational crowds. Across the world, Avatar speaks to the common human longing, reconnection with nature in the disconnected era, unity through the shared ecosystem. Cameron describes these ideas as timeless, family, courage, community, existing beyond one nation. And of course, everyone can see that regardless. You know, people speak of Avatar, it's family. In our fragmented era, Pandora offers wholeness, a reminder of humanity's shared roots in reverence for the earth, the strength of bonds, and the cost of imbalance. And the core star evils represented in the RDA, and the Na'vi representing our, humane truth. This cross-cultural depth, woven into breathtaking spectacle, creates an escapist experience that billions embrace, not just as an obsessive fandom, but as a profound, unifying event. It doesn't need that type of culture, which is what we're going to confront right now. And in the most persistent criticism we all know about Avatar is that it has no cultural impact. You hear it all the time. No iconic quotes flood the social media, no avalanches of memes you see online, no merchandise empire rivaling the toy aisles dominated by Star Wars lightsabers or Marvel action figures, no constant fan debates or cosplay conventions buzzing the years round. Like literally, you don't see Na'vis actually going to conventions unless you're at a Disney theme park next to the Avatar merchandise section. Where even as Fire and Ash will pass a certain mark, people will still bring up, why does it not resonate with modern culture today? Why don't we have moments like, no, I'm your father? Why can't we quote Neytiri or Jake Sully compared to likes of Tony Stark or any other characters like, I'm always angry like a Marvel film, or quip dialogue like Captain America? Why can't we do that? Why can't we have the sass of Tony Stark? Why can't we say simple things like, may the force be with you? Well, the simple answer is that these franchises are designed for obsession, crossovers, Easter eggs, multiverse lore, rewarding superfans with homework and debate fodder. Avatar, with James Cameron's deliberate design, rejects that entire model. James Cameron has said outright that he doesn't want it to be a pervasive pop culture. It's about singular transporting experience. The dialogue serves the story and the visuals, not meme potential. We don't come into dialogue saying quippy things about characters or ideas. That, creates some laughs in films, and that's fine, but it doesn't serve the true purpose of the natural world of the story. The characters are the archetypal anchors, not quip machines. Long gaps between films and minimal spin-offs means no constant content drip, and that's the actual universal truth of Avatar. It works because it's not the modern system. It's not any of this and above. Both addresses both sides of the argument of, anti this or pro that. It's just right there in the middle driving it through. It doesn't actually answer a heat or a call to cultural impacts or cultural warfare. It just goes to flow with culture itself. Critics point to this as a flaw, limited merch, no toxic fandom wars, but this absence is Avatar's strength. Where again, you now talk about the new eras of Star Wars and Marvel franchise superhero fatigue, and Star Wars not being the big anchor that it was, overloading to burnout where the leadership has actually alienated super fan base. But Avatar just rarely wants to do that. They just want pure escapism, no baggage and just awe. Where Avatar just wants to be that film you just go to see and soak all in. It evokes longings for harmony, nature's sanctity, and its empathy. Its impact isn't in memes or sales, it's in billions experiencing wholeness, subtly shifting perspectives on our planet in some way. That resonates globally and goes beyond online noise. Themes align with cultural values worldwide, drawing with families without hyping machines, without the universal truth of any nation on this planet. These are the impacts of our ancestors. The loudest impact is the debate about its lack thereof, keeping it in the conversation. But the true legacy is the revolutionizing cinema, building Pandora experience in parks and uniting audiences in theaters like nothing else, as Fire and Ash is proving right now. It's of course that blend like people criticize. It is, yes, people go to the theaters because they experience the new technological revolutions that it designed, but it's also very much more than that. It's universal truths spoken into a film that we've known for thousands of years since the very first dawn of time. Where even though other franchises, even beyond Marvel and Star Wars and like I said Barbie, dominate the noise, Pandora offers silence-breaking wonder, popularity through the silent majority as they would say in politics, increasing vital in chasing trends. Avatar preserves magic by rarity, delivering profound experiences that transcend fleeting pop culture that only exists for a minute. Like yeah, we will forget the entire plot of Avatar 1,000 years later too compared to Star Wars, not in that way where again we will say may the force be with you hundreds of years after George Lucas is gone, compared to Avatar where we don't know what the hell they're even talking about other than I see you, but the message still stays the same. It is in that nature. Or to tie it all together, It is just the universal truth of humanity itself. These elements turned modest openings into historic runs for the first 2 films, and they will continue to do so for the next few films that James Cameron has planned until the day he dies. What they represent in Avatar is pushing boundaries in some form with each entry, treating films as rare transporting events rather than content machines, where all of this represents harmony, people seeing the bigger picture, not the cultural impact. They see something that was in their element, in human nature itself, not what has happened around our world because of what we say ideologically, or what we try to inject comically wise into some movies. In an industry chasing saturation, Avatar thrives on rarity and wonder, proving that visionary spectacle and heart and universality can build a legacy that endures, on screen and in the world itself. Ultimately, Avatar is something that is profound, unifying escapes, breathtaking worlds of awe, emotional resonance, and subtle reminders of our shared humanity, human nature in its most basic element. And in our polarized divisions, Pandora's quiet power lies in its ability to transport billions, fostering wonder that lingers long after its credits in a universal truth, that the RDA is humanity's worst and the Na'vi can represent its best, interconnected through Awa. Whether the saga finishes 5 films or inspires even more real-world immersion or even 10 films, its impact on cinema is beyond deniable. Where now we all know the truth, that Avatar's impact is not what it does in culture, it's what culture impacts in us. And that's what the universal understanding that Avatar and James Cameron has done, and you can no longer deny that fact. I'm all done. Goodbye.